Hi viewers, welcome to the fifth lesson of lectures on a series of plant genetic resources and conservation. Today we are going to talk about an international treaty that is known as the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. This treaty is also known as the Seed Treaty, and the shorter form it is known as IT-PGRFA. Treaty. What the treaty mean is, treaty is an international agreement that is between two countries or between the states, and sometimes it is incorporated into the international law as well. So the main purpose of this IT-PGRFA was the conservation and sustainable use of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, because this is the need of time. As the population is growing, so we need more food, and we need to get a high production of we need to get more varieties with a good production so that we can meet the needs of our future generation or the future population. So the IT-PGRFA was adopted by the 31st session of conferences of the Food and Agriculture Organization, that is also known as FAO, of the United Nations in November 2001, and the treaty came into force in June 2004. What makes the PGIT, what makes the plant genetic resources for food and agriculture different? The plant genetic resources are any part of the plant or any genetic material of the plants. And when we talk about the plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, it means that those plants that we can use as food and that are important agriculturally. So, if we talk about the plants, so we have lots and lots of plants, and it is said that only four main crops that includes wheat, maize, and the rice, and these main crops they made 90% of the humans food. So, and with the passage of time, with the passage of time, as the need for food is increasing, so we are getting the more newer varieties and with the more good production, so we are losing the previous varieties. Those varieties, those were important as well. So the plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, first of all, that their nature is special because this is mainly important for food. And secondly, the plant genetic resources and for food and agriculture, they are important for food security. Food security means that all people should have access to the sufficient nutritious food. They should have access to the food, and there should not be anyone who cannot buy the food or who cannot access the food. So the plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, they are mainly important for food security. And secondly and thirdly, they are important for plant breeding, because if we have the knowledge for plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, then we can use this knowledge for generating good varieties. So this is important for breeding as well. And fourthly, this is important, the countries, different countries, because they have signed this treaty, so they are interdependence, the interdependence of countries on plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. So if we talk about the rice, the main organization or the main department that is working on the rice, that is IRI, and IRI is present in the Philippines. So if we wanted to improve the varieties, our indigenous varieties, so we can get the help from the IRI, because they have more rice varieties and they are working on rice to improve the rice characteristics or to improve the rice qualities. So the interdependence of countries on plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. And for this, the interdependence of countries, there should be an exchange of plant genetic resources that are important for agriculture. So when we talk about the exchange, so it means that the countries should have access to the plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. And this exchange, the exchange between the countries, should be continuous so that they can improve their indigenous varieties, and the access to the access to the plant genetic resources in the center of origin. You can find my lecture on the center of origin in my previous videos. So for the details of center of origin or the center of diversity, please see my previous video. And fourthly, the reduction in transaction cost. So if we talk about the exchange of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, It means that the transaction cost, the exchange cost between the countries should be reduced so that they can exchange these genetic resources easily. And then easy, efficient, and equitable system of benefit sharing. If the countries get any benefit from the genetic material or from the plant genetic resources that they received from other country, then they should share that benefit either in the form of money or in the form of any other means like the trainings or the technology. They should share this benefit with the countries from where they receive that plant genetic resource. So there should be an efficient, easy, and equitable system for benefit sharing. So, what were the objectives of IT-PGRFA, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture? The main objective of the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture was the conservation and sustainable use of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, and secondly, the fair and equitable sharing of benefit arising from their use. And this treaty was working in harmony with Convention on Biological Diversity for the sustainable food and agriculture security. You can also find my lecture on Convention on Biological Diversity in my previous videos. So if you wanted to see the details of this Convention on Biological Diversity, its objectives, its mechanism of action, so you can consult with my previous video. So what was the action plan for the conservation and sustainable use of plant genetic resources that was provided by the IT-PGRFA? It was to ensure the conservation of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture for the food security. And secondly, this treaty should promote the sustainable use of plant genetic resources to foster the development and reduce hunger and poverty. So the sustainable use means that the plant genetic resources that they modify for the food and agriculture, these should be available to our next generations as well. It should not be like they made any such variety which was working for 1 year and 2 years, and after that it just finished because it was not adaptable to the environment. So they should promote the sustainable use of plant genetic resources. So whatever they do, if they do some good changes in the plant genetic resources and they develop some more good varieties, then they should be sustainable. And then is to promote the fair and equitable sharing of benefits that arise from the sharing of those plant genetic resources. And this treaty should help the countries and institutions to identify their priorities, like what are their priorities and what actions they should take to prevent these or to protect these plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. And if they have some existing programs, if they have already some programs running for the protection or conservation of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, they should be strengthened, and the institutional capacity should be enhanced for the research and for capacity building, for trainings and the workshops, so that they can train some other new students who can work in the same field and who can further make a stronger team for the conservation and sustainable use of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. So according to this, the main focus of IT-PGRFA was to first of all recognize the contribution of the farmers to the diversity of crops, because farmers, they are the main workers who are growing the crops and who are producing crops at a larger scale for food and who are ensuring the food security. So the IT-PGRFA stated that the farmers' contribution should be recognized and farmers should be facilitated. And secondly, to establish a global system to provide farmers, plant breeders, and scientists with access to plant genetic materials. So the plant genetic material that are present in the different countries, as I already talked about the ED, that ED is mainly working on rice, so they have more data about rice plant genetic resources. They have more data about rice germplasm. So they should share this data with the farmers, plant breeders, and scientists so that they can work on it. And there should be some system. By using that system, the different countries who have signed this treaty can access this data, or to access this data on plant genetic materials. And thirdly, to ensuring that the recipient share benefit they derive from the use of plant genetic resources from with the countries from where they have been originated, or the countries from where they receive those genetic resources. So there should be there should be a benefit sharing system, and there should be a proper benefit sharing system. So these were the main focus of International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. So we will be talking about the elements of plant genetic. We will be talking about the elements of International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture in my next video. So to have more knowledge about the main elements of IT-PGRFA, please see my next video and subscribe my channel, that is MH Biology. Up till then, goodbye.